First, no questions from anonymous. Anybody? Any questions from anybody online here?
Question from Brinda from Mexico. Can you hear me?
Yeah, lightly. It's a
Okay,
question from Brenda from Mexico.
Yes. She sent it to me. 1 second, I can find it.
I don't know offhand who Brenda from Mexico
Can you
is.
hear me?
Yeah, not so loudly. Can you turn up the volume?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, same as before.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better.
Is it better?
Yes, of course.
Better. Is it better?
Yeah, third time you asked, I said yes.
Okay. Okay, her question is that she has heard, I'm trying to translate this, she wrote it in Spanish. She has heard that to have deities at home is not good.
What? Can you read it in Spanish?
Okay. Maharaj, I'm going to send it to your WhatsApp if that is better, maybe.
All right. Okay. It's becoming complicated.
Sorry, Maharaj. I send it to you now.
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Okay.
It's Maharaj's Spanish is good.
Did you hear the question? No.
Starting.
Yo había escuchado que tener deidades o murtis no era bueno por no saber cómo atenderlas y hoy en día se ha puesto de moda tener en tu habitación o en un sala de yoga. La pregunta, ¿qué pasa cuando la gente se tiene uno y no se atiende o no se sabe cómo hacerlo? ¿Qué es eso? Repercute, que de alguna manera se cometen ofensas. Well, it's about deity worship, having deities. She had heard that having deities is not good because one doesn't know how to take care of them, and in the present day, it's become very kind of like fashionable of having in your room or in a yoga salon. Then the question is, what should somebody do? People have them and they don't take care of them, and they don't know how to do it. And are they committing offenses by so doing, and etc. So it's about having deities. I'm trying to get back. Okay, here. So the first thing is, when we would discuss this with Govinda Maharaj, he talked about actually having murtis. I mean, deities. To have deities, one should not be putting deities into a rented house, but one should own the property. That was one thing that Gurudev told us. So in other words, even for instance, starting out for people who have a rented place for having a temple, etc., Gurudev said they shouldn't have deities unless they own the place, because then if the landlord wants one to leave, then the deities have lost their home. And I would say also for devotees who are not having a temple, they're just having in their house, well, then it becomes, I believe a little bit, there can be a little bit of problem in the sense that some people already own deities. They already own deities. They're not going to abandon the deities, and maybe they've had them from before and now they're in a rented place, or maybe before they were in a rented place and they've come to have another place they're renting. And what should they do? Well, you should keep on worshiping the deities as best you're able. And as far as this question of what happens when you can't properly attend deities, well, that's a problem, because a lot of people get deities and then don't take care of them properly. And also, for myself, even myself, I'm where I'm living is there are many pictures on the walls, or pictures. There are so many pictures of Gurudev, of Srila Guru Maharaj, of Srila Prabhupada, Acharya Maharaj, photos of, photos of Mahaprabhu's pastimes, etc. And in one sense, those are pictures, but they're also like deities. They're also like deities. How is a picture necessarily not a deity? I mean, Govinda Maharaj also said, if you have pictures, you should at least offer them incense every day. But, and I would say, well, there's even some things about worshiping pictures, worshiping deities, etc., that unfortunately I can say I don't always do that myself. So I can understand it's difficult. It's difficult for persons. They have deities in their house, and they're not able to properly take care of them. And then the question from this devotee, I guess in Mexico, is, what are the repercussions? What are the repercussions of not worshiping the deities? Well, I mean, one should endeavor to properly worship the deities. And if not, to say what are the repercussions, I'm not so much going to answer that, in the sense that it seems like this is something that people normally ask about. They're more concerned about the results of their activities than the actual intrinsic nature of the activities themselves. I mean, is the idea that I'll be a little more careful if the punishment is more severe, then I want to avoid it. Is that really the question? Is the question about punishment, or is the question about what is the actual devotion that one should engage in? So I'm not really going to talk about what are the repercussions of not worshiping the deities properly in one's home, etc. I'd rather, the question would be on the basis of how can one properly worship the deities, and how can one properly take care of devotional pictures, and how can one properly take care of devotional books, and all these kind of things. That's of more importance. We may be negligent, but is everyone really concerned about what is the punishment from what kind of punishment will I get for being negligent? I mean, then I don't really feel that that's the consideration. The consideration is that we want to properly worship the Lord. We want to, in one's house, if one has deities, then one can offer some fruit, offer some incense to the deities, and maintain some proper devotional, principles, being around the deities and all that. One shouldn't. There's so many things. One shouldn't neglect the deities, and one shouldn't talk nonsense in front of the deities, and one should, not act in a mundane way in front of the deities, etc. All that can be understood. So that's really the consideration. And what will be the consequences of not worshiping the deities properly? Well, I don't really consider that that's the question so much. We go into the temple, and we want to maintain ourselves devotionally in the temple, where you're going in front of the deities of what are the deities in West London called? They're Shri, Guru, Gauranga, Sundar, and
Radha Giridhari. Radha Giridhari, too.
Radha Giridhari, okay. And in East London, Shri, Guru, Gauranga, Radha Sham Sundar.
Yes.
So let's take it start out from the consideration of the temple. If we're in the temple, if somebody said, what will be the consequence of me sitting with my back turned towards the deities? I mean, is that really a question I want to ask? I don't want to turn my back on the deities. I want to be facing the deities. I want to bow down before the deities. That would be my consideration. I'm not so concerned about what happens if I point my feet towards the deity. What will be the repercussions? Well, don't point your feet towards the deities. Then you don't have to ask, or you don't have to worry about what the repercussions are. And it's not really a question of punishment anyway. Hello, Subhadra. Subhadra's there with Krishna Mohini. And Subhadra's getting big. Está más grande que antes, ¿no? Pues obviamente. Chama Sundar. Hare Krishna.
That's Maharaj.
How old is Subhadra now?
She's 6.
¿Ah? ¿Cuántos años tiene Subhadra?
She's 6 at the moment.
6? Okay.
6?
6? Getting bigger. All right. So anyway, regarding being in the temple, I mean, so obviously devotees are not going to ask questions like, what is the repercussion, or what reaction will I get for pointing my feet at the deity? They're not going to do that. They're not going to go in the temple, and they're not going to point their feet at the deity. But if they do so, it's because they maybe don't know that they're not supposed to do that. They're new, or they're not so much concerned about the punishment. And then somebody has to tell them, oh, don't point your feet towards the deity. So that's in the temple. So maybe at home, with one's personal deities, one is not necessarily, for instance, just due to leading a normal life, going to work and everything, one doesn't necessarily, one can't attend to the deities while one is gone, etc. So that's understandable. It's understandable, but I think and then if the person is saying, well, I go into the house of other people and I see that they're negligent in terms of their deities, or they have a yoga salon, a yoga place, and they have deities there as ornamental and everything like that. Well, I don't know I was just reading about Advaita Acharya yesterday, and it said how he came down and bowed at the feet of Mahaprabhu the baby when Mahaprabhu was recently born, Nimai, and Nimai put his foot on Advaita Acharya's head. And it said in that passage, Guru Maharaj said that normally if Advaita Acharya bowed down before a deity where there wasn't the actual presence of the Lord, or then that I believe it says statue, but it says it would shatter. So then people became very apprehensive when Advaita Acharya bowed down at the feet of the baby Nimai, and then Nimai put his foot on Advaita Acharya's head, and people were aghast. Oh, what is happening here? So, but it says there, if he did bow down before a deity where they didn't actually have the presence of the Lord, the deity would shatter. Now, then the question becomes, if when we read that, we say, oh, Nam Guna Lila Rupa, we thought the form of the Lord is the eternal form. So he's always present where there is that form. So what does that mean if there wasn't the actual presence of the deity, when one of the qualities of the deity is Rupa, that his form is the eternal form? Then what does that mean when there wouldn't be actual presence of the Lord? Well, I think we can understand it. We don't have to question it so much. What's the word? Semantically, we don't have to question that. We understand, okay, the form of the Lord is eternal, but in this case, obviously, it refers to a deity that either wasn't a proper form of the Lord or wasn't being worshipped properly, which is more understandable, that, and maybe it wasn't necessarily the form of Radha Krishna. Maybe it would be referring to people who were worshiping demigods, etc. Like maybe they're worshiping during Durga Puja or Kali Puja or Ganesh Puja or some Saraswati Puja. Saraswati Puja just ended on Sunday. That was a big day. Sunday, wasn't it? Sunday, yeah.
Yeah.
Sunday was Vasant
Panchami.
When the first flowers of spring are offered to the Lord, which is interesting because somebody could say, oh, but it's not spring yet. I know, but at least in our property here, all the flowers are in bloom. Their flowers are in bloom, many, many flowers. Of course, it's still not spring weather. It still gets cold, but the flowers are in bloom. And I also read about England. It said the flowers were 1 month earlier than normal. They're in bloom in England. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
They said they were in early bloom. So, of course, in India, there's like 6 seasons a year. And maybe in the case of where Vasant Panchami this year it came in February 6th, right? February 6th was Vasant Panchami. So in India, I would say February 6th is Vasant Panchami. Sometimes people say first day of spring. No, it's when the early flowers are being offered to the deity. But I have heard sometimes it's said that in India, when it's very, very cold, people don't necessarily bathe as regularly as they do when it's hot weather. And it said on, I believe I read once or heard Gurudev speak that on Vasant Panchami, sometimes people would cover themselves with, I don't know, oil or some paste. I don't know what kind of paste it is, like whether some kind of paste, like maybe made from some some kind of grain or something, maybe some paste. They would put that on their body to take off all the little bit more minuscule oils or dirt that had collected from not bathing, or at least we'll say they would rub oil on their body and then wash it off good. And on Vasant Panchami, it was kind of like, to make up for not being able to necessarily bathe 3 times a day or twice a day, or even maybe once a day. They would do a more thorough bathing on Vasant Panchami. Something I heard about that. Of course, it's not so much a consideration when someone can go into the bathroom, turn on the shower, and the hot water comes out almost scalding. One doesn't have to worry about, so much not being able to bathe regularly, because that was something that would happen on Vasant Panchami. Then also on Vasant Panchami, it says Saraswati Puja. So having lived in India, and we'd see especially when we were in Calcutta, we would see we're right in front of tank number 3, which is a bathing place. We would see people come whenever there's puja. That means we would hear all these bands playing. They would come basically with a drummer, and there'd be like some I don't know, like some kind of horns or something, another thing, and they'd make some. If it was a big puja, there'd be people going along. Sometimes people seem to be a little intoxicated. They would be dancing wildly, and other people would be throwing firecrackers. Have you seen this kind of disruptive behavior, Devashis?
I have, Maharaj, yes.
Yes.
Many occasions.
So this is part of the puja. And then they take the deity, which is baked or dried, a figure made from clay or mud and painted and worshipped. And then they have how is it pronounced? Visarjana Puja, where they dissolve the deity they place the deity into the pond. The worship is over, the deity is put in the pond, and assuming it's made from clay or baked mud, then the deity is going to dissolve in the pond, and they call that Visarjan. And we also have, when you worship the deity, there's a Visarjan Patra, Visarjana Patra, right?
Yeah.
Where the Achman is done and the water is put there, etc. So, and it's interesting when Advaita Acharya wrote a mystical poem for Mahaprabhu, which is describing, it's mystically stated by Advaita Acharya that everyone has become mad, and there's now no market for rice, isn't that it?
Yeah.
And in other words, telling Mahaprabhu that you came as part of your presence is to give the Yuga Dharma. You're the Yuga avatar in part, but that's already been accomplished. This is like apparently 12 years into Mahaprabhu's 24 years after taking sannyas. He's back in Puri. He's been in South India. He's back in Puri. He's also been in Vrindavan. And now he's had Sankirtan with the devotees and everything like this. And that's the Yuga Dharma, the chanting of the holy name. And Advaita is writing that people are mad now. In other words, they become mad by chanting the holy name, which is a good thing. which is a good thing. And everyone has that. Now there's not so much that has been accomplished. There's no more market for rice. Everyone has rice. It's more or less put in terms of a commodity. You've given the holy name to everyone. They've all become enraptured, chanting the holy name, and that's not so much a concern anymore. So then Swarup Damodar, he understands everything, but he says to Mahaprabhu, what does Advaita Acharya mean by this? And Mahaprabhu says, well, I don't know, but there is a class of worshiper. They invite the deity to come for some time, and then afterwards they say, that's enough, now you can go, more or less. That's what's being said. And he says, I don't know if Advaita is this kind of devotee or not, who invites the deity and then says to the deity, all right, you can move on. There's nothing more to be seen here. To the deity. Move on, nothing to be seen here. Mahaprabhu says it is a joke. And he mentions that, Visarjan, which is more applicable to the Shaktas than it is to the Vaishnavas. The Shaktas are the ones who are worshiping the deity and then dissolving it into the Ganga or into the Kunj. How many deities of Radha and Krishna have you seen dissolved in none? Nobody's dissolving deities of Radha and Krishna in the Kunj. At least no devotees that I know. They're not worshiping temporary deities, which reminds me, in Australia, the police refer to people who ride motorcycles when there's an accident. They say, we have a TA here, which means a temporary Australian. People who ride motorcycles are called TAs, temporary Australians, which might indicate to you what the police think about the safety of people who ride motorcycles, right? In other words, I can't say that with a car you have a chassis around you, because the chassis really doesn't refer to the car that's around you. The chassis refers to what the car is built upon. But let's say you have some structure around you. But on a motorcycle, your head is the structure in some ways. Anyway, your helmet is that structure. So anyway, Mahaprabhu says, I don't know about Advaita Acharya. Maybe he's that class. Maybe he's one of these kind of worshipers who invite the deity for some time and say now the deity can go home. And after Mahaprabhu expresses that to Swarup Damodar becomes a little bit saddened. And why is he sad? Well, you can understand, because Advaita Acharya is saying, all right, this stage of the devotion has already happened, and now you can tend to your more internal reasons for coming, which we would say is expressed to three reasons: to know the of Radharani's love, to know the sweetness, to know what Radharani is experiencing, because her love is much more intense than what Mahaprabhu perceives he's experiencing. I mean, it's expressed like that, of course. And then it's to know the sweetness in himself that only Radharani can taste, and to know the glories of Radharani's love. So it's all centered around that. And then it says, after Mahaprabhu reads this poem of Advaita Acharya, then all of a sudden, from then on, all these pastimes are going on throughout the whole night, and they're described as, in the Golden Volcano, they're described as like almost like wild, insane performances. In other words, Mahaprabhu is becoming completely absorbed and carried away in the mood of, the mood of Vipralamba, of worshiping the Lord in intense separation, Vipralamba Milan, sometimes being with Krishna, sometimes feeling separation from Krishna in the mood of Radharani, but in intensity, in extreme intensity. That's what happens after Advaitacharya's poem. Advaitacharya is saying, all right, wrap it up, more or less, in one sense. And that's what makes Swarup Damodar, saddened, because he knows, all right, now we're moving into a different stage of Mahaprabhu's pastimes. This will be the Antya Leela, the real Antya Leela. This will be the final Leela. And that's what Advaitacharya's poem is expressing, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. That's what the poem brings. So, and as described, and Advaitacharya himself says, this is being expressed by one madman to another, because he's already said everyone's become maddened by love of Godhead that Mahaprabhu is giving. Because what is the purpose of, what is even, we can say two external reasons for Mahaprabhu's coming is, one, to spread the chanting of the holy name, which we would consider that's a very principal thing. And two is to give the expression of all the rasas up to and including Madhurya rasa, which is also a deep thing. But even so, this will be referred to as what? More or less, you can say in one sense, they're the external considerations. And the internal considerations are referring to Mahaprabhu himself, to what he is experiencing and what his purposes are in coming. I mean, you could have the yuga, the yuga dharma given by someone besides Swayam Bhagavan himself. The yuga dharma doesn't have to be given by the Lord himself. It can be given by an avatar. So anyway, that, and returning to the question about deity worship, which was, I think was originally the topic. I'm just saying, don't, I would say, well, maybe you can say something to other people in passing, but you can't really correct other people. You can only correct yourself. It's very difficult to correct everyone, correct other people. You want to, hello? What? Okay, thank you. So, I mean, more or less, if someone has deities, then they can correct their own worship if they think there's something deficient. And if someone's thinking of whether they want to get deities, well, yes, consider whether you can properly worship the deities. That should be foremost. And now I remember, if I can say this, I remember when Saraswati was talking to me about getting deities, and she was worried because she was thinking that, well, we have to make these offerings and there'll be so much cooked and so much rice cooked, and who's going to consume all the rice? You're saying many of the devotees didn't eat rice, their children didn't eat rice. They were more inclined to eat pasta or something like that. So I said, okay, but most of the rice that's sold in the marketplace, at least from my observation, it's all pretty processed anyway. So pasta is also a little processed. So if you're going to cook pasta, all right, then offer the pasta. You make the pasta yourself. You can say, well, that's a process. It's processed, and but so in some ways, so is rice. Rice is also processed. How did they get the husk off the rice? They boil it. They boil it to a certain extent, a little bit, to get the husk off of it. So then it's already, one sense, it's already a little bit, not ideal, but who cares? I mean, we're not going through all the deep implications. When we want to make a cup of rice, we put in the right amount of water in the rice, and then we prepare the rice. We're not concerned whether it's been properly processed or not. We're just buying, oh, here's basmati rice. Okay, I'll make a cup of basmati rice. Okay, fine. You're not so concerned about all the consequences. Then someone is concerned, well, we can't offer processed products like spaghetti noodles or pasta noodles. We can't offer them. And I'm maybe they've heard that, maybe Prabhupada said that, or Gurudev said that, but from my consideration, I would ask, why not? Why can't you offer that? The pasta's not been cooked. It's just been prepared. Then somebody says, well, what are the consequences of eating processed food? Well, don't worry about it. You're going to get cancer anyway. Maybe that's not a good remark. But as an aside, I had some bread here. It's a company named Ora Wheat. And this bread was here. I mean, I threw it out, but this bread was here from December, early December. And in all this time, over a month, it never got mold on it, not one bit of mold. Can somebody tell me, how is that possible? How is it
Very well done.
possible? Huh?
It was a very well done bread, Maharaj.
Yeah, it's very nutritious. It's processed so it won't grow mold. That means it has so much preservatives in it. And those preservatives are going into your belly. So maybe they're also preserving your stomach very nicely. Is that possible? I don't know. When I was younger, it seemed like everybody, so many of the people we read about, they would die of heart attacks. And now all the people who pass away, it seems like they pass away, they die from cancer. So what has changed that's caused that shift? I don't know. Somebody asked me, I can't answer. I have no answer for that question. Just something that I was thinking about. But the only thing I could think, maybe today we eat more processed food, but I don't think that's exactly the answer either. When I was very young, I remember sometimes we ate spaghetti that came in a can. Canned spaghetti, that's real. I mean, that's pretty processed, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Kind of the deity question. I don't really want to concern myself with what are the consequences of doing bad deity worship. Why not try to just ask, how can I do proper deity worship? It seemed like a better thing. What kind of punishment will I get for? What kind of punishment will I get for shooting a Brahmin? I don't know. Why don't you first ask, why don't you first try not to shoot Brahmins? You know? All right. I don't know if this is answering. Perhaps this is a bad answer to the question. So I better take another question. Is there another question? Saraswati. Oh, who's there? Who's there in the pic? Here we are. Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat, West London. I see Anjali, and then I see half of you. And now I can see all of you. Who is that?
Maharaj, Ananda Swarupini.
Huh?
Ananda Swarupini.
Ananda Swarupini. Okay.
Actually, I just sent a question to Devashis because I didn't know how to send it to everyone or to you. So I just, yeah, there's a question.
You want to ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, I wrote it like this. If sometimes we are not feeling motivated to do seva or chant, should we try to force ourselves anyway, or wait till we feel inspired? Like, what's your advice?
Well, this is actually a good question. It comes up all the time. I remember in the beginning, you know, people, when they first came in contact, I remember people would, when they first came in contact with Guru Maharaj and the Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat, they all of a sudden became enchanted with the idea of Raganuga Bhakti or Rag Bhakti. And that meant to them that they didn't have to go to Mangalarti or they didn't have to go to any real programs because they didn't feel the internal raga desire within their heart to do so. Did you ever hear that expressed to you? Kind of something like that, Devashis?
Yes, Maharaj. Quite a
Yeah.
lot.
Quite a lot. So they didn't have really, they didn't feel they had to do it because they didn't want to force themselves and yet. But it seemed to me a really extremely superficial and wrong understanding of what a superficial understanding and a wrong understanding of what is Rag Bhakti. Because I would say, you know, the nature of the Rag Bhakti is to want to come, that someone is so advanced on the platform of devotional service that they have a spontaneous desire to, you know, to go to all these things, like to go to see the deities in the temple and to sing before the deities and to worship the deities and be there, you know, anticipating seeing the Lord and everything like this is just an intense desire to do so. And somebody's saying, well, I didn't feel the desire to do so. Yeah, but you don't feel the desire to do anything. You only feel the desire to eat and sleep. So why is that now going to become an advanced understanding or better yet, an advanced excuse for not properly worshiping the Lord and his devotees? I mean, so that I used to hear that when, you know, especially when devotees came in contact with Guru Maharaj, somehow or other, they thought because Guru Maharaj is undoubtedly an advanced devotee, that somehow by knowing him, they became advanced devotees also. The Guru Maharaj is on the platform of Rag Bhakti, and therefore they're also, by knowing Guru Maharaj, on the platform of Rag Bhakti, which it's like, hello, how does that follow? And I remember Guru Maharaj, one person asked the Guru Maharaj, they said, when we're singing the songs made by Narottam Das Thakur and Bhakti Vinod Thakur, does that mean we're also becoming imbued or permeated or affected by the same mood that they had in who expressed this in song? And Guru Maharaj's answer was puppy brain. Like, you're a puppy brain. You think that because you can sing the song, whether properly or not, that somehow or other you're feeling the original, the bhav or sentiments of the writer of the song. Puppy brain. How is that possible? So that's my feeling on, having come in contact with that and hearing from devotees. Well, I didn't do that because I didn't feel the internal desire to do so. But how shallow an understanding is that? You're not supposed to express your lack of devotion is that somehow or other that can be equated to Rag Bhakti. I don't think so. So anyway, and then this person, what is it, Ananda Swarupani?
Yes.
Okay, so you're asking, that was not an answer to your question. That was what I experienced in coming, in contact with many devotees. But in answer to your question is sometimes we don't have the desire to do something. What should we do? Should we force ourselves? Should we do it, etc.? And there is a thing I remember reading that Guru Maharaj did say that bhakti by force is no bhakti at all. So if it's a matter of someone is being forced to do something against their will, then that's not, Guru Maharaj said, bhakti by force is no bhakti at all. So how can I understand that? I remember there would be children who would take Harinam and they would be told, okay, now here, and obviously their parents had something to do with the decision for them to take Harinam. And they got their beads from Guru Maharaj or Govinda Maharaj or Charya Maharaj. They got their beads and they were so happy. They were actually very happy to get initiation. And sometimes I heard Guru Maharaj or Govinda Maharaj say, now to the child, now you should chant 4 rounds a day. And if you can't chant that, if the child can't chant that, then his parents or her parents have to chant for them. Because we're told the beads shouldn't fast. So, all right, so that's what I would say. Bhakti by force is no bhakti at all. Are you now going to force the child to chant Hare Krishna and give the child, your son or daughter, going to give your son or daughter a bad taste for chanting the holy name, that, well, if you don't chant the holy name, you can't eat dinner tonight, or you can't have a candy bar or something? Is it going to become a form of, you have to do this or you're punished? It shouldn't be like that. That would be within what I would understand the consideration of bhakti by force is no bhakti at all. And then someone could say, well, then what should we do? And I'd say, well, your parents, you have these considerations 100 times a day anyway about, getting your son or daughter to eat his or her vegetables instead of just eating dessert or whatever it is. I remember also Govinda Maharaj said on some programs, normally we all know that dessert comes at the end of the meal. Sometimes dessert would be given at the beginning of the meal for the children to keep them quiet. You know, it was a form of dealing with it. But I'm sure many parents have so many dealings with their sons or daughters. No, if you don't get off the phone and come to dinner, you're in trouble or something like that. I mean, so many things happen. So that's a consideration, but we did hear bhakti by force is not bhakti at all. Then how will that apply in relation to ourselves? Well, I mean, Ananda Swarupani, you know what is possible by you, and you're trying to follow as well as you can. But maybe there be some situations where you're too ill to do so, or you're too tired to really do so, really to do what you normally would want to do, but you're too ill, or you're too tired, or you're just too, maybe your mind is not in a good place, you're just really disturbed mentally or something, and you can't, I would say, try to do so as much as you can if somebody is dependent on your service, like you're doing a service in the temple, and if you haven't told anybody in advance, and if you don't do your service, there'll be some break in the service of the temple and it will affect others. I would say, well, in that situation, try to do so, or if you can't, try to find somebody else who will fill in for your service, etc. But I mean, I don't want to suggest forcing devotees to do something which is just way beyond their capabilities. I mean, what are your capabilities? You know that more than anybody else. And if there's some situation that you're going through or went through or it happens where you just can't do your service because you're feeling something is too stressful or too difficult or etc., then you can discuss it with others. You can discuss that with others. You can discuss, you can take shelter if you need some help, take shelter of some senior devotee. Ask somebody in the temple to help you with something that's bothering you. But in general, I would say, the question comes up where, what should we do? I don't feel capable of doing something like, something that's more or less, I think that's more of a personal consideration, in my mind, at least, for the person to resolve themselves. What everyone knows what their own limitations are. And I wouldn't want to force somebody to do something if I know it's going to result in some harm to them, that it's going to cause them to feel some resentment or some difficulty in doing future devotional service, that I feel like if this is going to be the standard for me and I'm going to be pushed, then I'd rather do something else. No, I would rather the person just be honest with themselves and see what they're capable of doing. And I don't know, it's too easy to say one way or the other. No, you have to do this, or you have to do that, or you can't. It is actually a fact that sometimes even Guru Maharaj, he'd say, Govinda Maharaj expressed that when Guru Maharaj is very much advanced in age, and he sometimes didn't want to speak with the devotees. And then Govinda Maharaj would say, well, they come a long way. They want to see you. They want to hear from you. Just speak to them for 5 minutes. And then Guru Maharaj would start to speak to them, and it would go on 2 hours. It wouldn't be for 5 minutes because he'd become enlivened. So, you could say at first he said he would, maybe Guru Maharaj would say he wasn't capable of doing it. It was, he felt, he didn't feel well or anything. And then Govinda Maharaj would say, well, just do it for 5 minutes and then they'll be happy. They've come all this way. They came to see you. And then Guru Maharaj would start to speak. And then the next thing he'd be going on for a couple hours. So some things you think you can't do them. And then you start to do them and you find out it's actually, you're happy doing them. At first you were thinking it was a chore. It was something that you didn't want to do. And then when you started to do it, you found out you were happy doing it and you were glad that you did. So then you can deal with it in so many ways. And then if you think, well, I didn't do this, I was supposed to do this and I didn't do this, what will be, what will be what should happen? I mean, I can also tell you one time I was with Srila Prabhupada, and I remember Srila Prabhupada, something I said or did, he became, don't remember where it was, but he was very, very disturbed and he became angry. And then the next morning I came into his room and I was about to apologize, to express my remorse to Srila Prabhupada. And before I could start, Tamal Krishna Prabhu, he said, don't bring this up. You'll remind Prabhupada of how angry he was yesterday and what was disturbing him. It's better not to mention it. And I did so. I didn't bring it up. I didn't mention it. And then Prabhupada was very happy and we had conversations and everything. And what had happened yesterday that made him upset, it never came up again. So in one sense, Tamal Krishna's advice was good, not to bring it up, not to bring up something before that, because if I would have brought it up, oh, Gurudev, I'm so sad, or I feel so bad that I did this or said that or did this, then Prabhupada would have said, yes, why did you do, he might have remembered. It was better not to bring it up. Tamal Krishna was right. So, and unless you made a super bad aparad that you can't live with, then if something happens that what is the saying that the Gurudev always gave? When a baby is learning how to walk, may fall down so many times. May fall down so many times in learning how to walk. But who can imagine that in years in the future, the person will become an Olympic runner or Olympic something or other, swimmer or something, Who could imagine? The same baby couldn't even walk. And there's also a saying, because my mother was naked when she was born, does that mean she should go naked now? You get the idea of those sayings, right? That so many things will happen. So many things happen in the past, but they are not the consideration for the present or the future. I don't know. I don't know how to express that, but well, it's just like that. I mean, we're not babies, but there sometimes, Gurudev also expressed Srila Govinda Maharaj, when one devotee was apparently not so much engaged, and it seemed like that person was having maybe some difficulties, and then wasn't so active. And Govinda Maharaj said, well, sometimes when you come to a big ditch in the road, you have to go backwards for some distance. So, Janradan, Ishanuga, how are you?
Maharaj. All right. How are you?
Good. So sometimes you have to go backwards from where you are. A person would have to go backwards so that they could run towards the obstacle and then jump over the obstacle. But you couldn't just jump over the obstacle standing in one place. You actually had to go backwards. So by going backwards, somebody could say, oh, that person used to be a good devotee, but now has become inactive. Yeah, but maybe that devotee is preparing themselves to do something in the future that they're not ready to do now. I don't know. There may be so many different situations. I did hear that expression from Srila Govindamars about a devotee who was apparently inactive or away from everyone. Then Gurudev said yes. And then Gurudev said, but sometimes it's necessary to go a little backwards to be able to run at an obstacle and jump over it. And that was the situation. The person came and did very nice service. So there's so many, obviously things are not two-dimensional. It's not like one answer fits all. We don't have one answer that fits every single situation. This devotee didn't do their service. So what should be done? I don't know. What's the situation? Oh, the devotee was taken to the hospital. Oh, okay. I guess they have an excuse. All right.
Yes, yeah, thank you, Maharaj.
Does that help with your question?
Yeah, it's wonderful to meditate on all of your words.
Pardon me?
Oh, yeah, it's wonderful to meditate on your words and advice and sentiments, and yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, I still do remember that expression of Guru Maharaj. Bhakti by force is no bhakti at all. But maybe it's not a question of force. Maybe it's a question of just awakening some desire. Do we have any other questions? Because I'm always aware that in London that I may be coming within the proximities of somebody's dinner. I'm always thinking about that because right now it's approaching, what is it? 8 o'clock. And by 8 o'clock, people like to be sitting at least sitting at the dinner table, isn't it? Tell me, in London Temple, is the dinner already offered?
Yes, it almost finished.
Oh, because that was one thing that Govindamars told me about, about festivals. He said a successful festival is where the devotees don't have to wait for taking prasadam. They shouldn't have to just wait while their whole meal becomes cold. And then sometimes I know here in SoCal, the cooks, they come to like Sanatani and others, they'll come and they'll go like this. They'll be pointing at their watches. All right, it's all very nice, but let's finish it. Because prasadam is offered and getting cold. So yeah.
Maharaj, I was just remembering what you were saying about Bhakti by force is not Bhakti. When I remember when I took Gadadhar to see Gurudev one time, he was only 5 years old. And I was kind of forcing him to give dandavats. And Gurudev said, do not force. So Gadadhar remembers that. And every time that I remind him to do so, I say, do not force.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And sometimes I see mothers come with their child in their hands and they go to offer dandavats. And then I'm a little concerned. I'm thinking, is this baby going to suffer from shaken baby syndrome that all of a sudden Mother's going down and paying dandavats, and the baby doesn't, it's in the hands, and suddenly the baby is being thrust forward, and while the mother pays dandavats, and I'm thinking, what's going to happen here?
Maharaj, one thing is force and another thing is encouragement, isn't it?
Yes, obviously.
Because yeah, there are different ways.
But we don't want really over exuberant encouragement.
Right.
We don't want the encouragement to become so over exuberant that the person feels deeply intimidated.
No.
Because we're all very happy and enthusiastic to do this, and I hope you feel enthusiastic to do this, and if you don't feel enthusiastic to do this, you're a bum. We don't want that kind of exuberance. Ishanuga, were you cooking?
I was working.
You were working. You just got home?
Yes,
Oh. You're tired from work?
a bit.
Yes, obviously. Anyone would be. When you go to work, you go on this, do you go on the subway?
Yes, the train. Yeah.
Oh. I see. Okay, so no more, are there, we'll kind of, as they say, wrap it up. Any other questions? So maybe I'll, after this, go for a walk. Right. Time, pointing at the watch. Okay. All right. All right, Rasaraj, Dandavat. Dandavats to everyone there. Chandra Falguni. Where's Rupanuga? Where's?
He just left.
Okay. And there's Madhu Gopal all the way from Tijuana. Where's Devananda? Devananda. Does anyone know where Devananda's tuning in from?
I think from UK. We have a Devananda Prabhu here
Okay.
from UK.
All right.
I think it may be him.
Ananta Govinda, you're well?
Dandavat Maharaj, yes. Happy to see you, Dandavat devotees.
Dandavat.
Don't
Dandavat Tungarasa.
Dandavat Maharaj. I'm sorry I can't take on camera. I'm at work.
Can't what?
I'm at work now, so
Okay.
I have to have camera off. But I'm very happy to see you and all devotees. Thank you very much.
What time is it where you are at?
Now is 9 o'clock here.
At night?
Yeah, tonight. Yes.
Quite late to be at work.
Yes, I am working until 10:30. So yes, I have night shifts, not evening, like afternoon.
Yeah, I had, when I was younger, I had a job which started at 10 at night and went to 6 in the morning. They called that the graveyard shift. So I was younger. I was working in the post office sorting mail. All right. Well, we'll see you all soon. On Saturday we have a program in Spanish. And on Sunday we have a program just for the whole world. That's on Sunday. At what time is that? I think it starts at it starts at 6 in the morning here, so it would be 2 in the afternoon in England, but I don't tune in. I don't get there till about 7, which would be 3 in the afternoon. But Ashram Maharaj is there and Trivikram Maharaj and other persons on Sunday. So, Dandavats.
Jai Maharaj.
Dandavad Maharaj.
Dandavad, have good rest, Ishanuga.
Danda Maharaj.
Dandavad Maharaj.
Thank you very much.
Dandavad, Ananta Govinda, who's there with you?
My daughter, Vishnupriya.
What's her name? Ishapriya?
Vishnupriya Devi.
Vishnupriya, okay. Vishnupriya, all right. All right, we'll see all of you.
Jai Maharaj. Jai Srila
Jai
Bhakti
Maharaj.
Pavan Janardan Maharaj ki jai.
Yeah.